Hello and welcome to Doing Time, where humans talk about their experiences in a psych ward. Today we have comedian guest Andre Hashem. I want to say it Jewish every time. Hashem. That's like this one comedian in Chicago. Okay, never mind. Okay, anyways, sorry, getting sidetracked. ADHD. Okay, welcome. How are you?
I'm okay.
You're okay? Yeah.
It's weird. I can't lie.
I sometimes forget the general tone of the podcast where I'm like, oh, people aren't fine like all the time.
Well, it's a thing, especially in comedy, where I've tried to train myself out of asking, "How are you doing?" Because I feel like that's just gonna be like people are gonna it's gonna trigger like, well, I'm melting down, or they're gonna have to lie about.
Oh, for sure. So what's your approach then?
I just say, "Hi, it's nice to see you now."
Oh, okay,
and then like
good.
later,
That makes you feel special.
Yeah, if we get into a conversation, then it'd be like, "How are things going?" With
really
more of a specific thing. But I don't know.
That's dope. I'm on autopilot 24/7. By the way, I for the past couple episodes I've said trigger warning, but I don't know if the Bill Cosby thing is in the shot. But if you see him and you don't want to watch the rest of the episode, please do just just block it out of your mind.
We've done that anyways.
Yeah, it's fine. He's canceled. Everything's good. Everyone's recovered. Okay, never mind. So anyways, okay, so the first question I always ask is how much time have you done? So that means therapy, hospitalization.
Oh, therapy, probably about 20 years of therapy, on and off. And then...
That's how old?
Well, they started me really young because it was my parents divorced when I was 1. And when I was in elementary school and started acting up, I think my mom assumed it was family stuff on top of also probably things that we found out later were probably bipolar and severe ADHD and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I think it's started sort of as family therapy, oh, he needs to deal with the divorce, that's why he's acting out kind of thing.
Okay.
So on and off with that. And then as far as institutions go, 2 months and a week in real inpatient.
Wow.
And then I had spent 4 months in sort of an outpatient program in my mid-20s.
Wow. Okay.
After
and
one of the inpatients.
Was this?
So I spent 2 months at the Menninger Clinic in Houston.
Okay.
When I was 24, and then actually came up here to a place called Yellowbrook up in Evanston. That's how I initially first moved to Chicago.
Cool.
And that was sort of the outpatient transition
from the inpatient. Okay, cool. Gotcha. Great.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
I was lucky that
Fabulous,
my mom was married to a wealthy man at the time, so we had the funds for that. This last round was on the state, so it was a little different.
So I want you to kind of go in. I mean, what was the general, do you want to go through each hospitalization, or you can kind of lead the way? I just want to know maybe what was your first hospitalization and then your most recent one?
Yeah. Well, and there really were just those two. There was kind of
Have you been hospitalized only 2 times?
Yes. You sound surprised.
Yeah. Look at you, piece of shit. Only twice.
It's my dating profile.
You didn't meet the quota for the podcast, so I think we're gonna end it here. Okay. I'm just kidding. No, somebody
somebody time
was
on the job.
I've been in 13 times, and I'm like, dude, you don't have to even be if you want to come on, you can go in. But. Okay, cool.
So the first time it's comical in and of itself because I had about 6 months before tried really hard to kill myself. I got really drunk and each beer I was having was downloading a bunch of Vicodin that I had saved from 2 knee surgeries.
Oh my God.
And I had never taken any of the pills, so I had a bunch left over.
Did you not take the pills purposely, or?
Oh, no. I was very intentionally, I was on the phone with a buddy. He had no idea what was going on. Okay. And I was just every beer I'd just kind of...
No, I was wondering if you saved the pills because...
Oh, no. I just saved them. I didn't like taking them. I kind of already felt a bit of an addictive thing to it. But I was it was I could maybe sell them, get some money. I've been broke forever, so it was that. Yeah. No, it wasn't saving them intentionally. It was just sort of I think I'd just been thinking about it for a while, and I was you know what? Let's just go. Let's ring the bell. But I woke up. I ton of pain, and went to work the next day and called my mom during I just I was in a ball like under my cubicle desk the whole morning, and just like called my mom to pick me up. She took me to Fuddruckers, like what happened. I told her what happened, and then it just like
Fuddruckers.
Yeah. Yeah, I needed some.
Of all
My
places.
stomach
I want
hurt.
to kill myself. Let's go to Fuddruckers
Yeah.
and want to do it more. Thank you, Mom. Jesus
It's like
Christ.
a good.
That's so funny.
At the time, I think it made sense. Like, it's like when you got a hangover, you want
Yeah.
something greasy for your stomach.
Of course, yeah. You got a suicide hangover, yeah. Just
exactly.
gotta try to cure that.
And but it sort of like just disappeared. It was
Yeah.
like I guess I had lived through it, and so it was. And she was dealing with her own mental health stuff.
Okay.
And but like 6 months later, and so like I even was like, okay, I made it through. I was like, I'm not gonna ever do that again. But then just didn't. I really have a handle on any of the stuff that was going on that got to that point. So like 6 months later, I was just like kind of at that point again, and kept talking to my folks about like what we could do. And like finally I was like, my mom had gone to rehab twice for booze, and I was like, maybe that'll be a thing. I was like, I'm a pot addict. I cannot quit smoking pot. You need to send me to rehab.
Wow. You
And-
just needed help.
Yeah, like I knew I needed to go inpatient.
Yeah.
And was like, I need to go.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the only way that they could just, it was like, oh, if it's drug rehab, it's good. We can, that's like a thing we can do. If you're suicidal, just go to a therapist.
And okay, but what turned that switch of like, oh, this is fine, because I think a lot of times people with depression get caught up in their own misery. I loved being miserable.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people offer me solutions, I'm like, no, like, why? This feels great.
It's like, yeah, then it would get better.
Yeah. Yeah, like today I went to I work at Grubhub, and we get like free food and stuff, and I like went to go pick up my food and went smoothie, and I turned to my friend and I was like, wait, this should have been harder, right? And she was like, what? And I was like, sometimes when things go easy and you're like, wait, I think something should have happened though.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when things go good, you question it because you're so used to like obstacles and just challenges
Yeah.
and like stupid fucking shit that happens, and you're like, wait, yeah. So
It's like, oh, I messed something up, and I'll find out about it later when everything's a disaster.
exactly when it's like all collapsing. So what kind of changed your mind from that like sadness to like, oh, this is a problem?
Yeah, it was I think at least at that point I was like, I'm not going to kill myself, because I'd already tried and failed, and was like, I'm not going through that again.
Yeah.
And I think there was a part of like, I think I had a little bit of hope and faith that I was like, something needs to change, but something like can be changed, and we can go on like a better path.
Okay.
And just I was just miserable. I was like it was like a very conscious misery for like a long time. So I was just kind of tired of that.
And were you working at the time? Like when you went to the hospital, were you working? Like what was
I'd gone back to school.
Okay.
So when I first, the attempt thing, I was working, but I had like this kind of plan at the time. I dropped out of college, was working, and had gone back to school, but like didn't make any changes. I like went back to the same major, and like kind of like, it wasn't. I wasn't using any kind of like personal introspection tools. I was just like, I kind of have this idea in my head of what my life is going to be. I'm going to keep just like going down that general path.
And you went to University of Denver, right?
I went to University of Denver Sturm for law school.
Yeah.
Afterward, University of Denver undergraduate actually rejected me.
Okay.
That was
because I went there.
Yeah. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Suck on that. No, I mean I transferred, but I went there, and the Sturm is like the most beautiful building.
Oh yeah, I mean
it's insane. But so you said that you were miserable, and what? I mean, when you were in the hospital though, what was your experience like? Because I've heard like everything from people.
The first time it was weird, because like, especially now having gone back in a very manic state where it was are
you bipolar?
Yeah. So, and I'm still figuring out which it's 1 or 2.
Okay.
Because I only in this last stint got, I think, probably quote unquote properly diagnosed. It was the first time I'd ever like been in like a manic episode or like been acting manic in
so
a psychiatric
but when you were manic, were you aware
place.
of it?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I just saw it as more like
big...
just being like kind of OCD and like intolerant of like noise and change and just things having to be specific. But I think overall it's just like this overall like feverish kind of, you know, egotistical
of course
thing that I before just thought was me. I just thought that was, I kind of had like a negative perception of that in myself because I just thought that was who I was. Like I'm just this narcissistic, destructive asshole. Yeah. When it's like, yeah, half the time.
Yeah. But like the other half, you're like, yeah. Yeah.
But so yeah, I thought that was like a character thing rather than like, and so in a way, I don't think I even considered myself as being bipolar.
You're like, this is just who I am. Yeah. Yeah, and so to go back to what was your experience like in the hospital though?
So
and what were you what were your obstacles when you're in hospital? Because like what were you hospitalized for?
The first time I just like went inpatient for it was essentially like rehab and for people like under 25, I think it was. They had it split up into different groups. They had like a professional thing that was like 25 to 50 or whatever. So it's sort of like more like it's just a mental health institution. People go in there. I mean, there were kids in there that were like severe cutters that were like constantly suicidal, that had really bad eating disorders. Mine was like being suicidal since I could remember, and also just there were like substance stuff kind of manifesting. I think my goal was just to like not get to that point, not have my emotions govern my actions so much in general, and I had no idea how to do that.
Okay, but you were kind of aware enough to.
Yeah, I knew that I had like no training in that.
Right.
And so like the first time I was supposed to be there for a month, and I was like, I'm not, like 3 weeks in, I was like, I'm leaving in a week, I'm not ready yet. And we got him to extend the stay to 2, and then did the sort of like the transitional thing. And I was like, at the time it was great. I was on perfect behavior all the time. I did all of the DBT assignments, everything. Right. I was like,
committed.
I was at some point like they like elected me like the leader of our little wing thing for like doing certain communicating with doctors and stuff like that, certain stuff from the community. But in a way, like looking back on it, it wasn't really me. I was like doing this whole thing because I was like, I'm just gonna be on good behavior, but like I was still repressing everything, I think, and just trying to be what I thought was like good was, and what not being mentally ill was, but it wasn't. I had them completely convinced forever. They like, when I went in, I wasn't on medication, and for like 4 or 5 months, even into the outpatient program, they're like, yeah, we agree with you, you don't need medication. And like, so like everyone was convinced. Them almost, like I was so convinced that I had convinced them, and they're trained to see that, and was like, I was so bought into it that
so what do you think that is though? Like, do you think that's you trying to like, so you're saying, okay, so explain to me, because you said something super interesting, and I'm not quite sure what it is, like kind of summed up into one sentence, but you said something kind of like you were acting as if you weren't mentally ill, or you weren't, what you said something like, really like powerful, but I can't.
I think I was trying to act in a way that mental illness, like that I had overcome, like the mental illness.
Oh, okay. So you were like, so basically you were like, oh, I'm almost convincing them that I'm okay, so to speak. So you're self-aware enough to know that your thoughts are fucked up, but then you're also self-aware enough to know like these thoughts affect how these people, like the doctors, oversee me. So I'm gonna act like this so that they don't.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a conscious thought. Like I was so bought into like. Are you a people pleaser? Oh yeah, I think a bit.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah. It was honest.
It's,
but
I
that's
alternate
how
between
it comes
people
off.
pleaser and the opposite of whatever that is.
Right. Yeah. A true degenerate to society. Yeah. Okay, we are back from break, listeners, and okay. So I want to finish up that. I want to finish up that conversation though. So you're saying. Because you said it and it strikes something in me that I think I'm similar, but I don't know how to articulate it fully, and I don't know if you can, just so that other people can kind of relate to it. So I did the same thing though, right? So like every time I was in a mental health facility or being watched, I think I acted as in like, oh, I almost want them to think I'm cool or like I'm too good for mental illness. Like I know I'm fucked up, but I want them to think the reason I have mental illness is valid, right? So I would say like, oh, my brother's on heroin, my parents are divorced, I'm struggling with, like, saying no to people, my mom has gone through 2 bouts of cancer, like, I'm struggling, right? So it's, like, things, like, these are all external things, and then internal things is, like, pleasing everybody, and then being on 3 sports, getting straight A's, like, that was me, right? So I think for you it resonated with me because I think I subconsciously acted though as if I didn't have mental illness though. Yes. And I think people could relate to that. I've never really talked about this, but I think it's super interesting because I would always try to frame it as being cool. I'd be like, I have anxiety. I'm like, well, you know, all Jews have anxiety, and everyone starts laughing, and I'm like, okay, but now they think I'm cool, right? So now my anxiety is cool, right? But if somebody else comes in and they're like, oh, he's so annoying, he's anxious, asks a ton of questions, but I'm the cool one with anxiety. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think that's how I try to come off.
I like something, I mean, there's definitely like a balance of like wanting to, I mean, I don't know, like prop your own ego. I think, well, you actually, and this is a little off, but you kind of actually mentioned it, and that hits it on the head of where I think, at least for me at the time, it was easier, or maybe that's just how it was that I was processing it, that I just thought all of my mental fuses blowing were like experiential things and like upbringing things. It didn't, to me, I was like, but I'm not mentally ill, because I also had the example of other people that in my family that were going through it. And I was like, oh no, so I'm just like, I'm the sum of my experiences. If we can just work through these experiences. Easy, though. Right.
But that's so easy to say, oh, it's because of this. Like, that's what I'd say. Be like, oh no, it's because my brother's fucked up, or because my family's messed up, or whatever it is. Like, I have all these new step-siblings. Like, I have a new life. And it's like, no, but it's you, Drew. Like, you're the one that's, like, needs help. Like, it's not everybody else. I mean, yes, everybody else contributes to you, but, like, it's a chemical thing. And then it's also, like, what are your values? Why are you like, I realize certain times, like, now that when I go into the hospital, every time I've reflected on why I went to the hospital, I know exactly why I went.
Yeah. It sucks. I hate the clarity that you have right after moments of no clarity. It's the strangest, like...
After a panic attack is the best moment of my life, because I'm like, oh, I realize why that happened. But before it, I'm like, why am I freaking out? Everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm like hyperventilating in the corner, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that is right. Like,
yeah. It's it's like the reflection, I think, just the ego in the moment of those things, and just like, I know I get into that of like, it's like you can see it building up, but you're like, okay, like, even I know this is a stressor, but we'll handle it, but maybe we don't handle it in a way of like, or maybe we just minimize the stressors rather than being like thinking I can handle each and every one.
Okay, so if you're kind of like me, which I'm going to go off of this, I do want to talk about, we were going to talk about medication, but I do, because I'm probably 70%, 30%. Like, I'm 74, 30 against it for myself. But I want to hear... This is about me. My name's on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
This is my podcast, everybody. Thank you. But I do want to say... I do want to say, though, that I do think since I think used to be, and not so much anymore... I had a point. I was going to say something about being a people pleaser and about how I'm like almost too good for mental illness, but I kind of, I hate being vulnerable. I can't stand it. I don't want to be vulnerable. And that, I think, is one of my main issues. I'm so uptight. I've never been free. I don't think I've ever like danced without like, pretend like dance like nobody's watching you. No, whoever made up the quote can fucking die, because I'm never going to do it. Okay?
Yeah.
Like I just don't, I'm very like I have stomach issues. Like I have everything that's like being so tight. Like I just am wound. and like I don't know if it's like that's kind of how I'm, where I feel like every interaction is like, okay, did that go right? Okay, did that go right? Okay, did that go right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, I'm exhausted. Do you know how many people like we've probably both met just being in this scene? Like thousands of people I've met just doing comedy.
Yeah.
And just being like, oh, do they like me? If they don't like me, well, they know this person and this person.
Oh, and everything. I never think that I handle an interaction correctly anyways.
Right.
And so it's just like at the end
tragic.
of it, it's like now I've had all of these interactions in one day and I've fucked them all. And now I'm like trying to send apologies and they're like, you have nothing to apologize.
I have done that so many times and they're like, no, this is more concerning that you sent this. That's and
why have you been thinking about this for 9 hours?
Right. They're like, I've already went to work and got home, and you're like still thinking about this, dude. So, it's funny because I actually was talking to this girl at work, and I like knew her sister, and I was like talking to her, and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know I know your sister. Like, we haven't met each other, but like I know who you are because like you look just like your sister. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I know you because of this, this, and this, and this. And then I was like, oh my God, I was like, hey, I don't want you to think I'm stalking you or anything. But like, she clearly was like, no, dude, you're cool. Like, it's not a big deal. But I literally, for like the next like 20 minutes after that interaction was like, oh my God, she thinks I'm crazy. Like, she thinks I was stalking her. Like, she thinks this, she thinks that. She's probably like,
it's going to affect her relationship with my sister. It's going to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she's like, I'm done. Like, you shouldn't be friends with her. And I was like, oh, this is straight anxiety. This is irrational. Also, the fact that I addressed it in the conversation, I was like, hey, like, I was so excited finally got to meet you, like, super cool, whatever, that we had this connection. But I think in my head, it's just a lot. Like, there's a lot that goes on, and then I think sometimes I have diarrhea of the mouth when I meet, like, I get excited. And the way I show my excitement sometimes is talking a lot.
Yeah.
So it just manifests in different ways. And then I'm thinking after that interaction, like, yeah, and then it's also like a lot of times if they know I have mental illness, is it like the cool mental illness where it's like, oh, she has depression, anxiety, but she's creative, so it's like it's part of the process,
people that can harness it into a creative output.
Exactly. Or it's like
rather than
it's not like I don't know, it's not like a glorified
impediment.
mental illness thing, but it's like, do you ever feel like that?
I mean, I think it is. I because I'm old. I've seen there's been a bit of a trajectory. I think
it's just gonna flash your age on the screen. It's like, Andre, 75.
I
32
feel
going
older
on
than I
75.
look, and that is
when you call your parents folks, I'm like, he is not a millennial.
That's more of a Southern thing, I think.
Yeah.
That. But yeah, they live in the past anyway. So yeah.
77, by the way. Okay.
I forgot even.
Sorry.
That no, I think it is. There's like, I think people are more open about it. There's like a popularization of and like more awareness of it. I think in good and bad ways. I see a lot of people make jokes about it that I'm like, the joke I'm fine making jokes about it, but like their joke, like their input on it makes like, oh, you might have like seasonal depression or not know how to handle breakups well, but like that's not you're not talking about like, I don't have any other option right now but to open up my, like, to die, and then just living a whole day, week, month, year, just being like every second of every day, being like, yeah, right now would be a good time, but I'll push through. I'll get through 5 o'clock, so put in a good day's work first. I don't want to disappoint my boss. Then I'll go home and do it. And then you're like, no, if I'll cook dinner, take a shower, make it to tomorrow.
Are you reading my journal? Are you reading everything I've been saying?
I need to start journaling.
No,
again.
It's more like my thing
really
is
helpful.
It's a good coping mechanism. But then again, when I journal as if somebody's watching me. So I'm like, oh, I can't write this because if somebody read this.
Do you write really, really well? Do you like make it really well written sometimes? And you're like, well, it's not a fucking book.
No, exactly. I'm like, this isn't going to turnitin.com. Like, it's not being reviewed by my publicist that I don't have. Like, what? It's insane. It's insane because I don't journal for that reason, and then sometimes I feel like I should write out my comedy, like in terms of typing, because I type so fast. But I think faster than I write, so sometimes my thoughts finish, but I still write it, and I'm like, why do I write like that? I think I need to find my writing process though, because I think that gets mixed up in it. But journaling is a great coping mechanism. But I wanted to get on the subject of medication. I'm on, to be completely transparent, because I think sometimes
I'm on loads.
No, I'm Yeah, and if you zoom down is my array of medication. No. The thing is so I'll just tell you my experience because this is almost I work in sales, okay? I'm not gonna sell you a medication. My thing is I've been on it since I was any type of like mental health stuff, 6th grade. So I was 12, 13, and I started taking ADHD medication, and then when I was a sophomore in high school, I was still on it. I started taking antidepressants, and since that, so for 7-8 years, I've been on antidepressants, and then ADHD medication for God knows how long. I mean, for 12 years. So, and I'm 22.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. But right now I am on mood stabilizer, antidepressant, and then at night I take a sleeping med, but it is an antipsychotic to help me sleep, which helps me with my depression. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it's a little because it's like, and then I'm on IBS medication, but that's like Jewish stuff. I mean, you're from Palestine, so that's why the episode is shorter, everybody. The conflict really is conflicting.
So you guys won. Okay?
Yeah. You're like, get over it.
Give us some concessions.
No, so I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. I know you said you've been on it in the past, right?
Yeah. So, and that was, like, I also similarly started really young with, like, various, like, ADD medications. And then, but, yeah, in my 20s.
What were you on? What
I was on, I think I was on Ritalin originally.
Yeah. You get skinny.
And then they went. I was freakishly skinny anyways.
Yeah, you're still. I mean, you're.
Yeah, this is. I also. It's not good that I'm this skinny.
Like, were you skinny like right now?
Well, this is. I'm actually at a little bit over what I weighed when I was like 14, but that was also the lightest I ever weighed for the next 10 years. Do we need
medical help right now, Andre?
No, we're fine.
Okay, so
but anyways,
Ritalin.
so yeah, like Ritalin. At some point, I think I tried Concerta when I was a little older. That made me really aggressive. I don't think I've tried Strattera.
Concerta made me really aggressive as well.
Yeah, it was, and I was playing rugby at the time, so it was not a good mix.
Why? What do you're supposed to knock motherfuckers out?
Well, yeah, but it carries over off.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you're like, it's a whole thing. It's a lawsuit. And
the last one that I thought was actually pretty good was Vyvanse. I was taking that in my late 20s.
Took that too.
That was like the least kind of like methy feeling of any of them.
That one's good.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a stimulant, but it also has like almost like you said, it doesn't make you feel as if you're on meth, which means you're just a higher, like Coke kind of thing, more relatable to the audience. But
sort of problem with Coke.
Yeah, but I think
like, oh, this is focus.
So somebody just like snorts it in line just to get their job done. What antidepressants have you been, or what are your thoughts on them? What have you been on?
So I was on, Lamictal, Wellbutrin, a couple others, but I think those were the two main ones. I know they were usually doubled up on those two. And I just didn't. I think they worked sort of.
Okay.
Where like the problem is like I was still like when I was taking those, like I was in law school, I was in real estate, I was still horribly miserable. I was going to therapy.
Okay.
Almost weekly in law school.
Okay.
And yeah, it was still at the point sort of what I was like trying.
Were you going up at University of Denver?
No, I had off.
So we just could have had the same therapist.
First name Barbara. No.
You mean every therapist? So you were on a lot of medication, and this is kind of what I want to get into as well. Is that so? You said probably over that course of a couple minutes, probably 4 or 5 medications. People don't realize that. Don't just go on antidepressants. It's a long process. It's getting to a doctor, making sure the doctor you can get into, and then once you get into the doctor, getting the medication. Once you get the medication, you got to make sure it fits your insurance. If it doesn't fit your insurance, it's expensive. If it's too expensive, you'd rather just be miserable and not pay it. And then if you take it, you might get fat.
Yeah. Well, you have to wait for it to first like even have an impact. Some of them
it takes 2 weeks. Yeah, exactly. You're like, I need help crisis
you made
mode
the first
right
call
now.
like 6 months before that.
Exactly. And then now it's first starting to work and you're like, I feel okay. Like, what is this? And then there's side effects, and then there's, okay, why don't we switch you? Okay, let's switch, right? So we got to taper off, which takes about a month if you're on an SSRI, which is the serotonin. I should know this. I was a psych major, which I usually try to stress in this episode.
Something
but since I forgot
reuptake
it.
inhibitor.
Yeah, it's serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So when the synapses are like firing into your cortex or whatever the term is, it's reuptaking more serotonin because your levels are in balance. Anyways, so if you're on an SSRI, they have bad withdrawal effects, aka me, like last weekend hungover and having brain zaps in my head. That's withdrawals. And then if you get those withdrawals for a month, and then you're like, okay, let's try another medication, and then you got to feel out the side effects. So that's why, hence, it took me 8 years to find the right medication.
Yeah,
like
that's
a
so...
walking rat.
It is, and that's over a third of your life right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. That's why it's called doing time with the fucking jail cells in the middle of the O. Okay.
Yeah, 500, the number of days it takes to actually.
Yeah. We're okay. I want to hear a quick thought. We're wrapping up on time, but because of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, we have to. I love you. I'm sorry. Okay. So I want to hear. Okay, 2 pros, 2 cons of medication right now. What you think? Because you're not on them, right?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna
so 2 pros, I think would overall the semblance of stability.
Yeah.
Maybe less peaks and valleys.
Keep going.
And probably just like less excuses at that point.
Right.
That's probably the cons, I think, is all like. The physical and psychological side effects in the buildup and getting to the right ones and that whole journey.
Right.
And then also too is like an A and a B. Like then the dependency on like those sort of my fear whenever I was on is like when you don't take them, like the days of complete disaster. Even though it's built up in your system and whatever.
But if you're on an SSRI, the other day I had to. Me and my boyfriend went out to eat, and I had to. We had to leave because I was going to throw up. Right. Because I was having withdrawals. Yeah. So it sucks. It sucks.
And then the part B of the dependence is like the maybe not putting as much. At least for me, not putting as much, relying on the medication too much, and not putting as much into all the peripheral stuff that I could be doing. That like doing like a particular type of exercise or being a little bit more into like other hobbies besides comedy, like music and meditation, stuff like that. Okay. So actually spending time with humans. I'm down. I love yoga. It's the weirdest
Core
thing
Power
for me
plug.
to say.
I love that place. Super expensive. Really?
Yeah, it's if you work there once a week, they give you a free membership.
Dude, hell yeah. Okay. Where can people find you? Instagram, Twitter? I know you have a show coming up.
Yeah, we have a show, Revolution Brewing, on November 20th. Fantastic lineup of pretty much they're all headliners.
Yeah.
And then my Instagram is Hashem for Comedy. HASHEM. Yep. For FOR Comedy. Hope you can spell that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's the cigarette.
Twitter.
Twitter is also Hashem for Comedy. Twitter is also Hashem for Comedy, I think. Okay. And I think that's it.
Okay, cool. Really. And don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, tell all your friends about it. Please review. Please review. Please review. Thank you for watching Doing Time.